I never told my daughter about the cottage in Muskoka. Not the real one, anyway. I was sitting in my study in Vancouver when my phone buzzed. It was nearly 11 at night, and I'd been reviewing some old financial documents when I saw my daughter's name flash across the screen. Emma never called this late. My chest tightened before I even answered. Dad. Her voice was shaking. Dad, you need to come home. Now. I set down my reading glasses. What's wrong? It's Derek. He's at the cottage. The one up north. He has people with him. They're trying to get into the boathouse. The boathouse. My blood went cold. Has he gotten inside yet? I kept my voice level, though my heart was hammering. I don't think so. The locks are. Dad, how did he even know about it? I never told him about that property. I didn't even know you still had it, but I knew exactly how he'd found out. Derek Harrison was many things, but stupid wasn't one of them. Greedy, calculating, manipulative, absolutely, but not stupid. Listen to me carefully, Emma. Call the OPP right now. Tell them there's an attempted break-in at 47 Lakeshore Road, Lake Roseau. Then call our lawyer, Patricia Chen. Her number's in my phone contacts. Don't talk to Derek. Don't engage. Just make those calls. Dad, what's in the boathouse? Everything that matters, sweetheart. Everything your mother wanted you to have. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, trying to stay calm. I'll call them now. The line went dead. I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes. 23 years, that's how long I'd been waiting for this moment. 23 years since my wife, Margaret, died of ovarian cancer at 47, leaving me to raise our 15-year-old daughter alone. 23 years since Margaret had looked at me from her hospital bed and said, "Someone's going to try to take advantage of her someday, James. You know they will. Promise me you'll protect what we built." I'd promised. And I'd kept that promise, even when it hurt. Derek Harrison had walked into Emma's life 3 years ago like a summer storm, sudden, intense, and leaving destruction in his wake. He was 36 to her 38, worked in private equity, though I'd never gotten a straight answer about what that actually meant, and had the kind of charm that made you forget to ask the important questions. I'd seen through him immediately. The way he'd asked about my work at our first dinner together, casual questions that were anything but casual. So, James, Emma mentioned you were in commercial real estate development? That must be quite lucrative in Vancouver. The way he'd insisted on seeing our family photo albums, paying particular attention to any pictures of properties or vacations. Wow, you guys really traveled a lot. Europe, Asia, must have cost a fortune. But Emma was in love, or what she thought was love. The wedding had been my first real test. Derek wanted something elaborate, a destination wedding in Tulum, Mexico. Price tag, $95,000. He'd presented it to Emma as the wedding of your dreams. But when the invoices started coming in, somehow Derek's contribution kept shrinking. First, it was 50-50, then 60-40. Then Emma was covering 70% because Derek's investment deal fell through. I'd watched my daughter drain her savings account, the one she'd built, working as a pediatric nurse for 15 years, to pay for flowers that would wilt in 2 days and a reception Derek's friends wouldn't stop talking about. I'd bitten my tongue. This wasn't the hill to die on. The second test came 6 months after the wedding. Derek suggested they move in with me temporarily while they looked for a house. My 4-bedroom Craftsman in Kitsilano had plenty of space, he'd argued. It would give them time to save for a proper down payment. Emma had looked at me with hopeful eyes. Just for a few months, Dad. 6 at most. That was 2 years ago. Derek had taken over the master bedroom, my bedroom, claiming the better light helped his work-from-home productivity. He'd converted my den into his office. He'd started making comments about the house's value. Properties in this neighborhood are going for $2.5 million. Easy, James. Have you thought about what you'll do with a house this size when you're older? The final test, the one that told me everything I needed to know, came 18 months ago. We'd been having dinner, the 3 of us, when Derek casually mentioned he'd been talking to a financial advisor. Just getting our affairs in order, he'd said, cutting into his steak. Making sure Emma and I are protected, you know? The advisor said we should understand the family's complete financial picture. Assets, investments, properties, that kind of thing. He'd looked at me with those pale blue eyes, waiting. That's between Emma and me, I'd said quietly. Well, sure. But Emma's my wife now. What affects her affects me. We're a team. Then I'm sure Emma can share whatever she feels is appropriate. Derek's jaw had tightened. Just for a second, but I'd seen it. The mask had slipped. Dad's right, Emma had said softly. It's not really your concern. Oh, the look on his face. Like she'd slapped him. After that, things changed. Derek started pushing harder. He'd bring home real estate listings for properties we should invest in together. He'd make comments about how I was sitting on assets that could be working for the family. He started talking about power of attorney, about estate planning, about making sure everything was properly organized for when I was gone. I was 63 years old and in perfect health. That's when I'd made the call to Patricia Chen, our family lawyer. Patricia had worked with Margaret and me for 30 years. She'd helped us set up the trust. She'd been there when Margaret died. She knew everything. I need to make some changes, I'd told her. And I need to make sure they're ironclad. What are we protecting against? Patricia had asked, though her tone suggested she already knew. A son-in-law who thinks my daughter's inheritance is his retirement plan. The revisions had taken 3 months. New trusts, new beneficiaries, new contingencies. Everything legal, everything documented, everything designed to protect Emma and only Emma. Derek had noticed the lawyer meetings. Everything okay, James? You seeing Patricia a lot lately. Just updating some things. Getting older, you know. Nothing I should know about? Nothing that concerns you. And that was true, because Derek Harrison's name didn't appear anywhere in any document that mattered. But I'd underestimated him. 6 months ago, Derek had started asking about the cottage. Emma had mentioned it once, years ago, before they'd even met a family property up north that held sentimental value. She'd probably forgotten she'd even said it. Derek hadn't. Your dad still owned that place in Muskoka? He'd asked her one morning over coffee. Emma had been confused. What place? You mentioned a cottage once. Up on one of the lakes. Oh, that. I don't know. I haven't been there since I was a teenager. I think Dad might have sold it after Mom died. But I hadn't. I'd kept it. More than that, I'd transformed it. The cottage itself was nothing special. A small 2-bedroom structure that needed updating, but the boathouse, that was different. Margaret had insisted we build it 5 years before she died. A place to keep the important things safe, she'd said. Away from the house, somewhere private. At the time, I'd thought she meant our boat, our water equipment. But Margaret had been thinking bigger. The boathouse had a basement. Not listed on any public records, not visible from outside. You had to know it was there. And in that basement was a climate-controlled room, 10 by 12 feet, with a biometric lock that only responded to my fingerprint and Emma's. Inside that room, original stock certificates from 3 tech companies Margaret and I had invested in during the 90s. Current value, $4.8 million. Property deeds for 4 residential buildings in Calgary and Edmonton. Rental income, $22,000 monthly. A safe deposit box key for an account in Toronto containing Margaret's jewelry collection. Appraised value, $360,000. Life insurance policies Derek knew nothing about. Investment portfolios Emma had never seen. And Margaret's journals. 17 leather-bound books spanning 26 years of our marriage. The last one ended 3 days before she died. I'd read them all after the funeral. Some passages dozens of times. One entry written 8 months before her death still made my throat tight. James is going to struggle when I'm gone. Not with grief, he's strong enough for that. But with letting Emma go, she'll find someone someday, and James will want to believe the best in them. He'll want Emma to be happy so badly that he'll ignore the red flags. I know my husband. He's going to need a system, something that protects our girl even when his judgment is clouded by love for her. I've been thinking about the cottage, about what we could do with it, about how to build something that keeps our life's work safe until Emma's ready to receive it, until she's with someone worthy of it, or until she's alone and needs it most. James, if you're reading this, and I know you will, you sentimental fool, trust your instincts. If someone seems too interested in what we've built, they probably are. Protect our daughter, even from herself if you have to. I'd protected her, even when it meant seeming cold. Even when it meant Derek thinking I was a difficult old man hoarding assets from my own child. Because I'd seen what Derek was doing. The way he'd slowly isolated Emma from her friends, claiming they didn't understand their relationship. The way he'd encouraged her to cut back her nursing hours, to focus on them, even as it meant she was financially dependent on him, and by extension, on me. The way he'd started making decisions for the family without consulting her. I'd seen it all, and I'd waited. The call from Emma's lawyer friend, Sarah, had come 3 weeks ago. James, this is probably nothing, but Derek approached me at a networking event, started asking questions about estate law, specifically about what happens to inherited property in a divorce, whether a spouse has any claim to assets inherited during marriage. My stomach had dropped. What did you tell him? The truth. In Canada, inherited assets generally remain separate property unless they've been commingled with marital assets. But he kept pushing, asked about trusts, about beneficiary designations, about ways to contest distributions if someone felt they were being unfairly excluded. Did he mention Emma? Not by name, but James. I think he's planning something. I'd thanked Sarah and hung up. Then I'd sat in my study for 3 hours, thinking. Derek was getting impatient. He'd been married to Emma for 3 years, living in my house for 2, and he still hadn't gotten his hands on what he really wanted. He was smart enough to know there had to be more. The house in Kitsilano was worth millions, yes, but Derek had done the math. He knew my career trajectory, knew the properties I'd developed, knew the lifestyle Margaret and I had maintained. He knew there had to be more, and he'd somehow found out about the cottage. I'd made a mistake 3 months ago. Emma had been going through old photos and found one of Margaret and teenage Emma at the Muskoka cottage, sitting on the dock. Emma had gotten nostalgic. I miss this place, she'd said softly. Do you ever go up there anymore, Dad? Occasionally, just to check on things. Derek had been in the room. I hadn't noticed him listening, but he must have been. The next week, property tax records for that address had been accessed online. I'd gotten a notification from the monitoring service I'd set up. Someone had searched the public database for 47 Lakeshore Road, Lake Rosso. The access had come from our home IP address. Derek. I'd called Patricia immediately. He's going to make a move, I told her. I don't know when or how, but it's coming. Is Emma safe? That had stopped me cold. Was she? Derek had never been violent, but financial abuse was still abuse, and desperate men did desperate things. I think so, but I want to make sure she has an exit strategy. What can we do? Patricia had been quiet for a moment. How much does Emma actually know? About the extent of the assets? Almost nothing. She knows about the house, her mother's basic life insurance. She has no idea about the rest. James, she's 38 years old. Don't you think it's time? Not while she's with him. If she knows, he'll find out. He'll pressure her. He'll manipulate her. He'll find a way to get to it. So you're going to wait until what? Until he leaves her? Until she figures it out herself? Until he shows his true colors in a way she can't ignore. And now, at 11 on a Wednesday night, that moment had arrived. My phone rang again. Patricia, the OPP are on their way, she said without preamble. Emma called me. James, what exactly is Derek trying to access? Everything Margaret wanted Emma to have. Everything we've kept protected. And it's secure? Biometric lock. Only Emma and I can open it. He can't get in without destroying the whole structure. And if he does that, the OPP will arrest him for breaking and entering. Good. I'm driving up there now. Should arrive in about 3 hours. Don't you dare go up there without me. But I was already grabbing my keys. The drive from Vancouver to Muskoka would normally take me about 4 hours, but I'd booked the last seat on the red-eye to Toronto that left in 90 minutes. I'd land at 6 a.m., rent a car, and be at the cottage by 8. I called Emma from the airport. Dad, the police are here. They're talking to Derek now. What's he saying? He's claiming he has a right to access the property, that it's a family asset and he's family. The officers asked him if he has keys or permission. He said he assumed it was okay since you'd mentioned it. I never mentioned it to him. I know. Dad, I'm so confused. Why is he doing this? What does he think is in there? Sweetheart, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Do not tell Derek anything. Not about our conversation, not about what you know or don't know. If he asks, you tell him you're as confused as he is. Can you do that? Dad, you're scaring me. I know, but I need you to trust me. Can you do that? A long pause. Then, yes. Good girl. I'm flying out tonight. I'll be there first thing in the morning. The police are going to ask Derek to leave the property. Let them. Then I need you to go home, pack a bag, and check into a hotel. Somewhere Derek doesn't know about. Use cash, not your credit card. I'll send you Patricia's number. She's on her way there too. Stay with her if you want. Dad, this sounds insane. I know it does. But Emma, your mother prepared for this. She knew someday someone might try to take advantage of you. Try to get to what we built together. She made me promise to protect it. To protect you. I could hear her crying softly. What's in the boathouse, Dad? Your inheritance, sweetheart. Your real inheritance. All of it. The flight was excruciating. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. I kept imagining Derek's face when he realized he'd been locked out of everything he'd spent 3 years maneuvering toward. I also kept thinking about Emma, about how she was going to feel when she learned the truth. Not just about the assets, but about Derek. About what he'd really wanted all along. Would she forgive me for not telling her sooner? Would she understand why I'd waited? The plane landed at 6:13. By 7:15, I was in a rental car heading north. Patricia called at 7:30. I'm at the cottage. Emma's with me. Derek's gone. The OPP escorted him off the property around midnight. But James, there's damage. He took a crowbar to the boathouse door before the police arrived. Did he get inside? No. The reinforced steel held. But he tried. There are gouges all along the frame. Good. Let there be evidence. Let there be proof of exactly what he'd been willing to do. I pulled up to the cottage at 8:45. The morning sun was glinting off Lake Roseau, and for a moment I was transported back 30 years. Margaret standing on the dock in cut-off shorts and a University of Toronto sweatshirt, laughing as 10-year-old Emma tried to catch minnows in a net. Patricia's car was in the driveway. So was an OPP cruiser. I found them in the cottage, Patricia, Emma, and a young officer who couldn't have been more than 25. Emma looked exhausted. Her eyes were red from crying, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. When she saw me, she stood up. Dad. I crossed the room and pulled her into a hug. She felt so small, just like when she was little and would run to me after a nightmare. I'm here, I said quietly. It's going to be okay. Mr. Thompson? The officer stepped forward. I'm Constable Mitchell. We responded to the call last night. Your son-in-law was attempting to gain access to a structure on your property without permission. We've documented the damage and issued him a warning. If he returns, he'll be arrested for trespassing and attempted breaking and entering. Was he alone? The constable glanced at his notes. He had another individual with him, a male, approximately 30 years old, who claimed to be a locksmith. The locksmith left immediately when we arrived. Mr. Harrison was agitated, kept insisting he had a right to access the property. He has no rights here. This property is in my name solely. It's not a marital asset. That's what we explained to him, sir. He wasn't happy about it. After the constable left, the three of us sat around the cottage's small kitchen table. Patricia made coffee. Emma stared out the window at the lake. I don't understand, Emma said finally. Why was Derek so desperate to get into the boathouse? What did he think was in there? I looked at Patricia. She nodded. Emma, your mother and I spent 35 years building something. We were both from nothing. She was a teacher's kid from Hamilton. I was a carpenter's son from Sudbury. But we worked hard. We saved every penny. We made smart investments. And we built a life. I took a breath. When your mom got sick, she made me promise to protect what we'd built. Not for me, I don't need much. But for you, she wanted to make sure you'd always be taken care of, that no one could ever take advantage of you. Dad, I know about the life insurance. The $50,000. That was for funeral costs and immediate expenses, sweetheart. The real inheritance is in the boathouse. Emma's eyes widened. Your mother set up a system. Everything we owned, the investments, the properties, the assets, they're all in a protected trust. The documentation is in the boathouse. The stock certificates, the property deeds, everything. How much are we talking about? I glanced at Patricia. She pulled out a folder. Current total asset value, excluding your father's primary residence, $8.3 million. That includes 4 rental properties, generating monthly income, stock portfolios, bonds, and your mother's jewelry collection. Emma stared at her. 8 million? Your mother was very smart with money, Emma. So was your father. They lived modestly, invested wisely, and built an estate that would provide for you for the rest of your life. Why didn't you tell me? Emma looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Dad, why didn't I know? Because I needed to know you were safe first. That you were with someone who loved you for you, not for what you'd inherit someday. The words hung in the air. Emma's face crumpled. Derek, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. He knew, didn't he? Somehow he knew there was more. That's why he... Oh God. The financial advisor. The questions about estate planning. The way he kept pushing to understand our complete financial picture. He wasn't trying to help. He was trying to find out what he'd have access to. Patricia finished gently. Either through you or, if necessary, through legal claims after your father passed. Emma put her head in her hands. I'm such an idiot. No. I reached across the table and took her hand. You're not an idiot. You're a good person who wanted to believe the best in someone. That's not a weakness, Emma. That's what makes you your mother's daughter. We sat in silence for a while. Then Emma looked up. Can I see it? The boathouse? The three of us walked down to the water. The boathouse looked the same as always, from the outside weathered wood, green metal roof, slightly crooked door that I kept meaning to fix. But now there were fresh gouges in the doorframe, places where Derek had tried to pry his way in. I pressed my thumb against the biometric lock hidden in the doorframe. It beeped once, and the door swung open. Inside, the boathouse looked normal. Paddles on the wall, life jackets hanging on hooks, an old canoe in the rafters. Emma looked confused. Dad, I don't. I walked to the back corner and pulled up the rubber mat covering the floor. Underneath was a trapdoor with another biometric lock. Emma's face went pale. Mom built this? We built it together. She designed it. She wanted somewhere safe, somewhere no one would think to look. I pressed my thumb to the lock. The door opened, revealing stairs leading down into darkness. I flicked on the light switch. The basement room was exactly as I'd left it 3 months ago, when I'd come up to add some new documents. Metal filing cabinets lined 2 walls. A small desk sat in the corner with Margaret's journals stacked neatly on top. A safe was built into the far wall. Emma descended the stairs slowly. Like she was in a dream, she walked to the desk first, picked up one of the journals, opened it. I watched as she read her mother's handwriting, watched as tears began to fall. She knew, Emma whispered. She knew someday someone might try to take advantage of me. Your mother was very wise. Emma spent the next hour going through everything. Patricia walked her through each document, each investment, each property deed, explained how the trust worked, how the assets were protected, how Emma would have access to everything, but it could never be claimed by a spouse unless she specifically chose to add them. Your mother set it up so that you're the sole beneficiary, Patricia explained. When your father passes, everything transfers directly to you. No probate, no contests, no legal claims from anyone else. It's completely protected. And Derek can't touch any of it? Not a penny. Even if you'd stayed married to him for 50 years. Emma looked at me. You've known all along, haven't you? About what he was after? I suspected. I couldn't prove it. I needed him to show his true colors. By trying to break into the boathouse. Yes. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I need to leave him, don't I? That's your choice, sweetheart. Not mine. But you think I should. I chose my words carefully. I think you deserve someone who loves you for who you are, not for what you might inherit someday. I think your mother would say the same thing. Emma picked up one of Margaret's journals again, opened to a random page. Read for a moment. Then she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. She wrote about this. About making sure I'd be okay. About protecting me even after she was gone. Emma's voice broke. I miss her so much, Dad. I know, baby. I miss her too. We stayed at the cottage for 3 days. Emma needed time to process everything, and I needed to make sure she was safe. Derek called 17 times the first day, then 32 times the second day. By the 3rd day, the calls had stopped. That's when the lawyer letter arrived. Derek was contesting the trust, claiming that as Emma's husband, he had a right to full financial disclosure of all marital assets. He was threatening to sue me for financial elder abuse and improper asset concealment. Patricia laughed when she read it. His lawyer is an idiot, she said. Every single thing your father did was legal. More than legal, it was exactly what estate planners recommend. Derek has no case. But Emma didn't laugh. She looked sick. He's not going to let this go, is he? No, I said honestly. Men like Derek never do. Not when they think they're entitled to something. What should I do? Patricia leaned forward. You file for divorce. You cite irreconcilable differences. You don't mention the money, the trust, or the inheritance. You stick to the prenup you signed, which, thank God, your father insisted on, and you walk away. Clean break. Will he fight it? Probably. But Emma, here's the thing. Derek thinks he has leverage. He thinks you don't know what you're sitting on. He thinks if he pushes hard enough, threatens loud enough, you'll cave and give him something just to make him go away. But I won't. No, you won't. Because you know the truth now. And the truth is, Derek Harrison married you, thinking he was marrying into wealth. What he actually did was sign a prenup that leaves him with exactly nothing. The divorce took 11 months. Derek fought every step of the way. He tried to claim the Kitsilano house was marital property because he'd lived there. He tried to claim Emma's nursing income during the marriage should be split. He tried to get access to my financial records, claiming he needed to understand the full scope of family assets to ensure a fair division. Every single claim was denied. The prenup held. The trust held. The property deeds all in my name or the trust's name were untouchable. In the end, Derek walked away with exactly what he'd brought into the marriage. Nothing. I'll never forget the day the divorce was finalized. Emma came over to the house, her house now. I'd transferred the deed to her name as an early inheritance, and we sat on the back porch with glasses of wine. You knew from the beginning, didn't you? She asked. About Derek. I suspected. I hoped I was wrong. Why didn't you just tell me? Why did you let me marry him? I thought about that for a long time. Then I said, because you had to see it yourself, sweetheart. If I'd told you before the wedding that I thought Derek was a gold digger, you would have defended him. You would have thought I was being overprotective. Maybe you would have married him anyway, just to prove me wrong. I couldn't protect you from making your own choices. All I could do was make sure those choices didn't destroy your future. Emma was quiet. Then she said, Mom's journals. I've been reading them, all of them. Yeah? She wrote a lot about you, about how much she loved you, about how she knew you'd take care of me. Emma paused. She also wrote about being afraid, about what would happen after she was gone, about someone taking advantage of me. Your mother was very perceptive. She wrote something else too, in the last journal. About 3 days before she died, Emma pulled out her phone and read, I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of leaving James and Emma alone, in a world full of people who will see them as targets. James because he's too kind. Emma because she's too trusting. But I've done what I can. I've built protections. I've created systems. And I've made James promise to be strong even when it's hard. To let Emma make her own mistakes but catch her before she falls too far. That's all any parent can do. Love them enough to let them stumble. But love them enough to make sure the stumble doesn't become a fall. I felt tears running down my face. I didn't bother wiping them away. She was right, Emma said softly. You let me stumble, but you made sure I didn't fall. Your mother was always right. Emma moved back into the Kitsilano house. Derek moved out to an apartment in Burnaby. For a while, he tried to spread rumors that I'd manipulated Emma, that I'd hidden assets illegally, that I'd poisoned Emma against him. But rumors don't hold up well against legal documents and police reports of attempted breaking and entering. 18 months after the divorce was finalized, Emma met someone new. His name was Thomas O'Brien, and he was a high school history teacher. He drove a 12-year-old Honda, lived in a modest apartment, and had student loan debt. He also made Emma laugh in a way I hadn't heard since before she met Derek. The first time Emma brought Thomas to the house for dinner, I watched him carefully. Watched how he talked to Emma with respect, with genuine interest. Watched how he talked to me with courtesy but not deference, with friendliness but not manipulation. At one point, Emma mentioned she owned the house. Thomas had looked around and said, Wow, this is a beautiful place. The maintenance must be intense, though. My buddy owns a heritage home in New West, and he's constantly dealing with something breaking. Not how much is it worth. Not you must be doing well. Just a normal observation about old houses and maintenance. When Thomas excused himself to use the bathroom, Emma looked at me. Well, he seems nice. That's it? Just nice? Emma, what do you want me to say? I don't know. I guess I'm waiting for you to tell me if he's really what he seems or if he's another Derek. I thought about that. Then I said, You know what the difference is? Thomas hasn't asked a single question about money, about assets, about what you own or what you're worth. Derek couldn't make it through our first dinner without trying to figure out my net worth. Emma smiled. I noticed that too. Then you already know everything you need to know. They got engaged a year later. Small ceremony, family only, at the Muskoka cottage. Thomas cried when he saw the lake. This is where you scattered your mom's ashes? He asked Emma. Yeah. Right off the dock. Thomas walked down to the water and stood there for a long moment. Then he came back and said to me, "Thank you for sharing this place with us. I know it must mean a lot to you." That's when I knew Emma had found what Margaret and I had. Someone who understood that some things, some places, some memories weren't about monetary value. They were about love. Emma and Thomas have been married 3 years now. They live in the Kitsilano house. They've added solar panels and a vegetable garden. Thomas bikes to work. Emma still works as a pediatric nurse, though she's cut back her hours to part-time. They don't need the rental income from the properties. They don't touch the trust funds. The investments keep growing. Last month, Emma came to me with an idea. Dad, I've been thinking about Mom's journals, about what she wrote, about protecting people, about making sure they don't fall. Yeah? What if we used some of the rental income to start a foundation? Something that helps women escape financial abuse, provides legal services, financial education, housing assistance. I felt my throat tighten. Your mother would love that. We could call it the Margaret Thompson Foundation. Make her legacy about more than just protecting me. Make it about protecting everyone. So that's what we did. The foundation launched 6 months ago. We provide free legal consultations for women dealing with financial abuse. We run workshops on financial literacy, on protecting assets, on recognizing red flags in relationships. We help women escape situations where they're being controlled through money. Last week, a woman came to one of our workshops. She was 34, married to a man who controlled all the finances, who had isolated her from her family, who had convinced her she couldn't survive without him. She reminded me so much of Emma during those years with Derek. At the end of the workshop, she came up to me. "Thank you," she said. "For the first time in 5 years, I feel like I have options, like I'm not trapped." I thought about Margaret's journal entry, about letting people stumble but making sure they don't fall. "You're going to be okay," I told her. "You're stronger than you know." She smiled a small, uncertain smile and left. Emma was standing beside me. "You think she'll leave him? I don't know. But now she knows she can. And sometimes that's enough. I'm 67 now. The cottage in Muskoka is exactly as Margaret and I left it. The boathouse still holds all the important documents, though now Emma has full access. The foundation keeps growing, and every summer, Emma and Thomas bring their daughter, my granddaughter, Margaret Rose, up to the lake. We teach her to fish, to canoe, to swim in the cold water. Last summer, 5-year-old Maggie asked me a question. "Grandpa, why do we always come here?" I looked at Emma. She smiled and nodded. "Because this is where your grandma Margaret wanted us to remember what matters," I said. "Not how much money we have or what we own, but that we take care of each other, that we protect the people we love, that we build things that last." Maggie thought about that. Then she said, "Like the boathouse?" "Exactly like the boathouse. Can I see inside someday? When you're older, sweetheart, when you understand why it matters." She seemed satisfied with that answer and ran off to chase butterflies. Emma sat down beside me on the dock. She looks just like Mom, doesn't she? She has her grandmother's eyes. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over the lake. "Dad?" Emma said after a while. "Yeah? Thank you. For everything. For protecting me even when I didn't know I needed protecting. For letting me make my own mistakes. For making sure those mistakes didn't cost me everything. That's what parents do, sweetheart. We catch our kids before they fall too far. Mom would be proud. Of the foundation. Of what we've built. She'd be proud of you. Of the woman you've become." Emma leaned her head on my shoulder. "I miss her. I miss her too. Every single day. But Margaret was still here. In the cottage. In the boathouse. In the foundation that bore her name. In the trust she'd created to protect our daughter. In every woman we helped escape financial abuse. In every family we taught to protect what they'd built. She was here in the lessons I'd learned. That true protection isn't about controlling your children's choices. It's about giving them tools to make better ones. That love sometimes means watching people you care about make painful mistakes. That the greatest gift you can give someone isn't money or assets or property, but the security to know they'll be okay no matter what. Margaret had taught me that sometimes protection